It must be getting close to the NFL draft because we've got Matt Williamson's draft ditties. We're talking philosophies, trends for every team in the NFL as it pertains to the NFL draft on today's Peacock and Williamson.
NFL analyst Brian Peacock and former NFL scout Matt Williamson bring you expert NFL analysis every day in less than 30 minutes. Get an inside look at the NFL on the field and in the front office with elite breakdowns to next-level analysis and in-depth information only for the real NFL fans. This is Peacock and Williamson, and it starts now.
Welcome to the Peacock and Williamson NFL Show. Brian Peacock alongside Matt Williamson at BD Peacock at Williamson NFL. Thanks, everybody, for making us your first listen on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. We love and appreciate all the everydayers out there. Let us know you stopped by. And if you're new to the show, welcome. Please subscribe. Do it now. Pause and subscribe on YouTube or wherever you are listening to the audio version of this podcast. And today's episode of Peacock and Williamson is brought to you by FanDuel. And right now, new customers can get $250. That's $250 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins at FanDuel.com. Matt, we're going to start on the AFC side of things today with the draft ditties. Would you like to let the listeners know out there, if they haven't been hanging out with us for years, what the draft ditties are and how long has it been since you've been drumming up the draft ditties?
Yeah, it is kind of a fun show. Anyone is interested with Draft Digest, they put out an old school draft magazine every year, and you won't find my name in there, but that's okay. I do all the team needs, and like when you go to the team pages in that publication, I pretty much wrote all that, like, well, they picked up a wide receiver, but they need a tight end, blah, blah, blah. And one of the things is Miami Dolphins draft ditty. And it's just, what's some kind of trend about this team? And basically what I do is I go to drafthistory.com, pull up that team, and just kind of stare at it until something jumps out at me, and sometimes you got to strain a little bit. Sometimes they're jump off the page. They're really impressive stuff, and they tell you a lot about where the team is right now.
Absolutely. Sometimes it's just plain as day what a team's philosophy is, and you can learn a lot about what potentially could happen in this draft. And who knows, impress your friends, because not only is it good knowledge and good nuggets, but it's also a perspective on how teams run things. And then sometimes there's teams that maybe you don't know what the trends are yet with a new regime, or and I think you can learn a lot in that regard as well. Some teams are just like, give us best player. Some teams more active. Some teams don't draft certain things, right? And so it's a lot of fun with the draft ditty. So let's get into these and start with the AFC side of things, and we'll go through from the AFC East and work our way west. And that begins with the Buffalo Bills. What kind of trends are happening with the Buffalo Bills drafts?
Yeah, and over a 5-year stretch, 5 drafts, their average first draft spot, like if you take all their drafts together, add it up, divide it by 5, of where they pick first to start their draft, is until 33rd overall. And
if I'm not mistaken, there's only 32 picks in the first round, so they don't even average a first round pick every year.
Right, and that happens to be where they took Keon Coleman last year. He was the 33rd overall pick. Now, I understand that they have first-round picks, but they've been super successful, or they trade back, or the Josh Allen trade, so you got to think, over 5 draft classes, you really have not had premium picks.
You're not getting those 5th-year options coming up for the next 5 years either with those draft picks from the past 5 years. And if you're a team, let's say you are the Cleveland Browns and you don't draft a quarterback at 2, or the New York Giants, you think you might have a call placed to the Buffalo Bills about potentially moving up if you think you might want to get up and get a quarterback?
Yeah, and what's interesting, you brought up the 5th-year option. Like last year, they traded out of the pick that ended up being Xavier Worthy and ended up taking Keon Coleman at the 10 of the first round after 2 trade backs, from what I remember. One with the Chiefs, one with the Panthers, 2 small moves. And what tells me is they don't value the 5th-year option as much as most teams. And we've gone through it. It's not as valuable as it used to be, especially your pick at the end of round 1. You really have to hit on a stud. And they'll gladly take the extra 4th to do it, and just take one more bite at the apple.
What kind of trends and philosophies are we learning from the Miami Dolphins over the last few years?
I think it's pretty clear that they're a pretty aggressive organization, that they kind of live on the edge either way. They're all built on speed. But look at their drafts. I mean, so in 2020 and 2021, 2 drafts, they made 5 first-round picks in those 2 drafts. But then the 2 drafts after that, they made 0 first-round picks, and their first pick didn't come until 102nd and 51st overall. This past year, they picked the 21st overall. So they're starting to get back on track of having normal drafts. But it makes me think, like, man, all the team needs that Miami has, 2022, 2023, more premium picks. Maybe you would have a left tackle in place, or, a defensive lineman that you need, or, better O-line situation.
I mean, this is a really good lesson, not so much in just a specific team trend, but we saw it with the 49ers. We saw it with the Los Angeles Rams. The Rams were able to get a ring, the Niners and the Dolphins not, but, getting rid of first round picks and premium picks to go bring in talent to try to get you over the hump, to try to
Tyreek Hill. I mean, that's where that went.
Right, Tyreek Hill for the Miami Dolphins, and they traded for Bradley Chubb.
Yeah, good point.
So you're really going for it, right? And if it works, it's awesome. And you're like the Rams, and the Rams have already won. They've lost a bunch of talent, had this big gap, and you really do start to see that gap. You don't see it immediately. You see it a few years later. We're seeing it with the 49ers, and all of a sudden they're like, okay, we don't have this cost-controlled high-end talent, and we need defensive linemen and offensive tackles. Those are first-round picks, and they didn't have 3 in a row because of Trey Lance. And so you really start to see what the vacuum that is created talent-wise when you don't have first-round picks for years in a row, and it shows up a few years later than when you would have picked those players. And we're seeing that with the Miami Dolphins right now.
What's interesting is, I'm sure after making 5 first-rounders and 2 drafts combined, we're sitting pretty. We can make the big move for Chubb and Tyreek and then go win the Super Bowl, and we don't need them for these next 2 years. Now, it's a risk, but you're sitting there thinking, wow, it would have been nice to have those picks, I mean, just after making so many first rounders, now you feel like you can be that aggressive, and they didn't work out.
The Buffalo Bills trend is very similar to what we see with the New England Patriots. And the New England Patriots traditionally have been a team that they're willing to move down. They want to collect picks. And they play it that way. What have we seen more recently now, and even since Bill Belichick has moved on from the New England Patriots?
I'm not sure why, because I don't think of them as great comp pick masters. But over the last 3 drafts, they have made 8 fourth-round picks. Maybe there must be some comp involved there. I mean, because that's comp neighborhood. Yeah. But I found that strange. You make 8 picks in round 4 over 3 drafts. And this past year, all 5 of their first picks were on offensive players. And it feels like the offense has nothing to hang their hat on except for the first one they took, Drake May.
Let's finish up the AFC East with the New York Jets. What is the ditty on the Jets in recent draft history?
So since 2016, they've made 12 first-round picks. 6 of them on offense, 6 of them on defense. 2 of them were quarterbacks, and those 2 are both top 3 overall, Sam Darnold, Zach Wilson. So sometimes I look at these and just be like, wow, they've had very balanced drafts. Like some of these teams are super, like Green Bay is super defensive heavy in round 1. Well, the Jets were super balanced. And the 2, just so happens that 2 of those 12 picks were quarterbacks, really high, and neither's with the team or obviously paid off.
Did you hear the quote from Woody Johnson a couple days ago about Justin Fields?
No.
He said, I don't have the quote in front of me, so I'm gonna have to paraphrase it. But essentially, he said, talking about Justin Fields and his talent in the 2021 draft, and being like, yeah, we really believe in there's something there with Justin Fields. We really believe in the talent. And when you think about the 2021 draft, remember there was 2 guys, and it was Trevor Lawrence and it was Justin Fields. and literally everybody else in the world goes, Woody, you drafted the 2nd quarterback that year.
Wow.
And it wasn't Justin Fields. It's pretty unbelievable.
That's pretty unbelievable. Wow.
So that was
that explains some things.
Well, he wasn't around either. His brother was kind of in control of things because he was going off being an ambassador or something. So that is the New York Jets for you.
Pretty crazy.
That is pretty phenomenal quote from Woody Johnson, the owner of the New York Jets. We'll see if those Jets draft trends change now that he's back from his ambassadorship. Let's talk South, North, West in the AFC draft ditties, and finish up today's Peacock and Williamson coming up. This episode of P&W brought to you by Chewy. Love me some Chewy. You've probably heard of Chewy, and if you haven't, they really do have everything you need to help keep your pet happy and healthy. I feel like there's a Chewy box that shows up on our door every single week. My wife loves using Chewy, whether it's shopping for food, treats, or even pet healthcare. Chewy makes it fast, easy, and affordable. We're talking over 100,000 products from all your favorite brands. Chewy has everything your pet needs, from food to treats, toys, beds, grooming. And it's not just for dogs and cats. They've got supplies for birds, fish, reptiles, and small pets too, even smaller than little birds and fish. So look, the orders come fast. It is super easy. You have an auto ship feature, which really saves you from running out of the important necessities like food or treats for your pet as well. And Chewy has obviously everything to keep your pet healthy and happy. But right now, you can also save $20 on your first order and get free shipping by going to chewy.com or clicking on the link in the description. Save $20 on your first order with free shipping by clicking on the link in the description with chewy.com. Minimum purchase required. New customers only. Terms and conditions apply. See site for complete details. All right, Matt, we're moving on to the AFC North, as it is the Baltimore Ravens. What is the trends here with this football team under Lamar Jackson?
Basically, the trend with the Ravens is they own the comp game, that they're so good at it. So 2 years ago, the Zay Flowers draft, 2023, they drafted just 6 players. The last time they drafted less than that was all the way back in 1999. So I just pulled it up now. There's a lot of these drafts, 11 picks in 2022, 10 in 2020, 12 in 2018, 11 in 2016. So they routinely make 10 or more picks in a draft. Good way to stay good.
9 picks last year.
Yeah.
So they love draft picks, and that's how you build the meat of a football team. Especially if you're drafting late. Like, where do you find your advantages? Well, a lot of those good teams that draft late find their advantages by finding cheap talent outside of round 1.
Yep, and no one's going to hit on all their picks, but if you make 10 picks and 5 of them turn into good players, it's pretty good.
Better chances to hit on, say, 5 of 10 picks than 5 of 7 picks.
Right, exactly. I mean, if we all act like teams are better drafters than others, but basically, I mean, maybe you hit 45%, maybe I hit 55%, but is that really that much difference for only making 6 or 7 picks? Not really.
What's going on with the Cincinnati Bengals?
So over the last 3 drafts, they've made 6 selections in the top 60, all on defense except for Amarius Mims, and their defense is a mess.
Interesting. That's why their defensive coordinator got fired. So it's either a drafting problem or a developing problem or a scheme problem in Cincinnati. They tried to fix 2 of those 3 things.
I think they're blaming him for not developing the talent.
We'll see how that goes for the Cincinnati Bengals. They got to fix something. And guess what? It's another draft where we're mocking defensive players again to the Cincinnati Bengals.
Yep, absolutely.
Cleveland Browns.
This one's super telling, and just the massive ramifications of the terrible, terrible Watson trade. So if you combine the last 3 drafts, when was their first average selection? 65.3 overall. That is so bad. They've made 0 first-round picks in those times and have only made 1 choice in the second round. That's a hard way to win. I mean, Watson had to be Mahomes for this trade to work out.
You talk about a talent vacuum that was created by a lack of picks. I mean, no team is that more evident than the Cleveland Browns. And it's one thing to average drafting, 33rd overall, like the Buffalo Bills every year.
When you're winning.
Good reason for them to be doing that. To be averaging your first selection at 65, not even in the second round. That's not, and you have a bad team anyway.
Right. That's the thing. I mean, again, Watson would have had to be Mahomes, not to mention what you're paying them. That's not even a factor here. The good thing for the Browns, though, they do have the most draft capital for this upcoming draft of any team in the league.
The Pittsburgh Steelers, the model of consistency. What is the historical perspective here on the Pittsburgh drafts?
Yeah, they got some streaks going. 5 straight drafts where their first selection was an offensive player. Now, one of those was Chase Claypool in the second round after the Minka trade, but still, that was their first pick, was 5 straight offensive players. And then before that, they went from 2013 to 2019 doing the exact opposite, defensive players. TJ Watt, Cam Hayward,
And it's funny because they hit on all those defensive players. The offensive players haven't been hits quite as much. And we'll see what happens with the 2 offensive tackles in the last 2 drafts, which is really key for the new version of the Pittsburgh Steelers. But you look at Claypool, I think, we don't have to talk about first round running backs, but I think that was, in my opinion, a bad pick at the start. And, maybe he wasn't even as good of maybe just not quite as explosive of a back as maybe you'd hoped as a first round running back, either on top of it for the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah, Pickett obviously didn't work out,
And then, obviously, Pickett was another one that an ill-advised draft pick, and maybe they were the only team that was willing to make that pick. And you don't want to be the outlier in the NFL draft. Is kind of one of the things. If nobody else likes the player, do you know more than everybody? We talked about how it's like, well, maybe one team's hitting at a 45% rate, the other team's at a 55% rate. But if you're all alone on a guy like Pickett or drafting a first-round running back, when other teams are like, yeah, right now I don't think that's the right way to go about it. Are you smarter than everyone? And it looks like maymery they weren't.
They weren't for a while there. And I do think the new regime with Omar Khan has changed things. He's drafting tackles and offensive linemen, Yeah. I mean, they drafted 5 offensive linemen in the last 2 drafts.
To the AFC South now and the Houston Texans, Matt.
So over the last 7 drafts, they've made 5 first-round picks. Except all of them came in 3 draft classes, 2019, 2022, 2023. Some of those were the Watson trade, but they were the team before that was always like trading their first round pick, so they've had a real roller coaster draft history here.
And that 2023 class is really, it's the one, right? CJ Stroud, Will Anderson.
Yeah.
Those are the guys. That is the era that we're in with the Houston Texans, and now you got to build around those guys.
But last year they didn't have a first round pick.
Right. Yeah. And so you have to make up for that. And so, it's the plexiglass principle team with the Houston Texans, right? You think about, okay, you got this thing and let's go. And it's like, okay, well, no first round pick. And you got to continue to develop other parts of your football team. And
they go get guys like Diggs, and he didn't quite work out. And, right.
You have the cornerstones, but you still need to build around them and continue this thing. And I think there might be another bump in it for the Houston Texans. We'll see. Fascinating football team, I think, in 2025 where they're
at. It's a little like Miami. You got to walk before you can run,
Yes, absolutely. That's a great way to put it. Indianapolis Colts need to crawl before they walk. Like, when are they going to get over the hump that they've been trying to get over for the entire Chris Ballard era, it feels like?
I always think their team is loaded with second-round picks. Like there's no superstar Bosa, Jonathan Jefferson, and you can kind of see why. So in these last 7 drafts, they've made 13 second-round picks. I mean, that's almost 2 per year, but only 4 in round 1. They also made 7 fifth-round picks over the last 2 years. I'm not even sure how that's possible. 7 fifth-round picks over the last 2 years.
And the other thing, obviously, with the Chris Ballard team and the Indianapolis Colts is look for those relative athletic scores. And I wonder if Chris Ballard is punching air this year, or if he will be saved by his own, because I think he's almost like gone too far into we're drafting athletes. It's like, well, let's get some football players to complete the picture here for the Colts. Always drafting high-end athletes. This year, there's so few players that even have a complete athletic picture. I feel like half the class hasn't even run a 40. And
right. No one's done change direction stuff.
And the pro day, we don't have all those pro day times for some reason this year like we usually do. I don't know what's going on. It's like there's these NFL draft Illuminati that doesn't want to let us have the 40 times this year. And so I wonder if
arm lengths are wrong, hand sizes are wrong. Like, what's going on here? We used to be able to trust these numbers.
Yeah, but you know what? Maybe it'll help some teams be like, you know what? That it's all noise. Trust the tape.
Yeah, maybe. Let's get back to basics. Grind the tape.
We'll finish up the AFC South with the Jaguars and Titans, and then move on to the AFC West. Draft ditties, trends, and philosophies from recent draft history. Next. Today's episode of Peacock and Williamson brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. The NBA playoffs are almost here, and FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the action. And right now, when you join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, you'll get $250 in bonus bets if that first $5 bet wins. And I love how FanDuel makes it so easy, whether it's picking your favorite team or you diving into player props. NFL draft props are up and live, and there's a lot of good ways to play the NFL draft. And I think it's one way you can really get an advantage in your sports betting. If you follow the NFL draft closely, NHL, congrats Ovechkin. Can't believe one of Gretzky's career records went down. That's a wild one. Didn't know if I'd see that in my lifetime, although good luck catching him on assists. From three-pointers to assists to hockey assists to basketball assists, whatever it is, you can find all your favorite player props, so don't miss out. Head to FanDuel.com and claim your $250 in bonus bets today. I know you're a hockey guy. Any Gretzky and Ovechkin notes before we move on to the AFC South?
That's really, really impressive. I didn't think any Gretzky's records would ever get touched. And one thing I will say, I'm not nearly as into hockey as I used to, but like you watch the Gretzky highlights, I'm not taking anything away from that era, or you watch these guys' highlights, there's like no net to shoot at now compared to then. I mean, back then it was like all this net and they're blasting slap shots from the blue line. And now it's a lot tougher to get it past these huge goalies, with all the giant pads.
A quick Gretzky note, just because we're having fun talking about sports today, just for a second. The fascinating thing to me with Wayne Gretzky, and look, he put that goals number way out there. Alexander Ovechkin has now passed it. But if you add up Ovechkin's goals plus assists, still doesn't add up to just Wayne Gretzky's assists. That's how far out there he is with the assists.
I'm pretty sure if he never scored a goal in his life, Gretzky would still be the all-time points leader.
Yes.
Over everybody. Right. If he never put the ball puck in it.
Ovechkin's, everybody goals plus assists doesn't equal Wayne Gretzky, just assists. Bonkers. And he also is now number 2 in all-time goals on top of it. Bonkers. Jacksonville Jaguars. Do they need an assist? What have they been doing recently?
Yeah, so almost every year it's like Money in the Bank. I always do Jacksonville's average draft position because it's usually like I'll be like in 8 years in a row, their average draft position is like 4.1. It's crazy low. But they took Brian Thomas at 23rd last year, and they took Antoine Harrison at 27 the year before. So they kind of screwed that up. But over the past 5 drafts, they've been good. They make 10 picks per year. That's pretty nice. I mean, you would hope that the meat of their roster is starting to come around.
And look, Trent Baalke got fired, and I don't think he was a great GM by any means at any of his stops, but masterful in the first round last year. So congrats to him on the way out. Got one right. They maneuvered and actually went down and still got Brian Thomas, right?
Yeah, right. So no, it looks like they did good stuff, but they had all those early picks, the Bortles and even like Trayvon Walker at 1. I mean,
years.
Right.
And again, we talk a lot about arm length. When it comes down to something like Aiden Hutchinson and Trayvon Walker, you got to take the best player. It's not all about, it's not just arm length. Like it's an important factor for ends and offensive tackles and things. But I think we might go a little. People talk about so much. I think you go a little overboard. You start talking about a defensive tackle. It's like, it's only 32.5-inch arms. Who cares?
Is it that big a deal? Right.
And for an interior, that's why he's an interior guy. Who cares? It actually can help. You get your punch quicker. Sometimes you can be too long inside, in my opinion. So
good point. Good point.
Be smart about our arm length conversation. It's an important one, but it deserves nuance as well. Talk to me about the Tennessee Titans.
Okay, bear with me. This could be a little bit hard to follow because their last 14 first-round picks, only 3 have been on defense. So they've gone 11 offensive players, and they're about to go 12 now, I think about it, 12 out of 15, with their first-round pick being an offensive player. But however, over their last 9 years, when you look at their first 2 picks, they've gone offense, defense, or defense, offense, offense, defense. Like last year they went Latham, Sweat. Like they don't go back to back on offense.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Just keeping it even there.
Keeping it even. But they always go offense first.
And they're going to do it again.
And they're going to do it again. Yep.
So pencil in a defensive player at the top of round 2 for the Tennessee Titans.
Yeah, you would think. Unless they trade back in the first, who knows?
Let's finish up the draft ditties for the AFC, moving on to the AFC West and the Denver Broncos.
So over the last 6 drafts, they've made 9 picks in the top 2 rounds. Okay, but 7 of those 9 have been on offensive players. So they've really put their premium picks in the last 6 drafts on offense. And their defense is pretty good.
Many of those players aren't around anymore.
Yeah, true. Javonte Williams just left. Right.
Judy's gone.
Judy, good one, right.
Kansas City Chiefs. What are these guys doing? They're drafting late every year. I know that.
Yeah, and they've made 9 picks in the second round over the last 6 draft classes. Last year was also the first time the Chiefs used 2 picks on their first time they used first 2 picks on offensive players since the 2013 draft. So much like Tennessee, they would go either defense or defense offense. They never went offense since 2013 before last year. They have a lot of second rounders.
And you are the king of the draft ditties. I don't want to step on your toes here, and I don't actually have the
Sometimes
numbers.
I miss an obvious one, though.
I feel like, this is anecdotal, I feel like the Chiefs trade their first pick every single time, whether it's up or down, whether it's like a couple of picks up or 4 picks down into the second round. Do they trade every year? They traded up for both of their first 2 picks last year. They traded up at the end just a couple spots. They traded up 1 spot in the second round last year.
Trade up from Holmes, right? And they made trades to get first round picks with Tyreek. They're going to get the Titans pick from Snead. There've been a lot of movement in the early rounds for the Chiefs.
It's a competitive front office. That's what that tells me. It's like, well, we want to move up 1 spot. We have a plan, and we're putting it into place. If we're able to trade down, and you give us what we want, we will go down a couple spots. Right? It's up or down. So my money's on the Chiefs not selecting at 31.
Yeah, maybe not.
Las Vegas Raiders. What have they done over the past few years? It's been a weird run for the Las Vegas Raiders in multiple regimes.
Well, if you make a ton of mid-round picks, you should have a lot of strong, cheap labor. And I don't think the Raiders have, despite over the last 7 years, they've made 11 third-round picks and 10 fourth-round picks. So you're basically getting more than almost like a bonus. Well, really like 3 bonus picks in the 3rd, 4th rounds for 7 years in a row. You would think their infrastructure would be better.
Something hit me with the Raiders recently. Will Johnson doesn't have a 40 time yet.
Yeah.
But Carroll, traditionally, kind of the cover 3 defense, and they find their corners late, but drafted Witherspoon at corner in the top 5 a couple years ago. And I wonder if
I can see Johnson being the pick.
Will Johnson, he is my comp when I watched him play was like, this guy plays like Richard Sherman. Everyone wants to put Patrick Surtain on him. I said, he plays like Richard Sherman. I think he's a perfect fit for that defense. They need corners. They just announced that, and he might be cut by the time this episode airs. But Jones, the corner, is either going to get cut or traded, which means he's going to get cut. They probably have been trying to trade him. They need pieces there. Their part owner and GM, both Michigan men. Will Johnson.
Oh, good point. I didn't think of that. Yeah.
Dark horse
makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
6 to the Las Vegas Raiders.
Big need. Yeah.
I'm going to put that in there in my next mock draft. Don't steal it from me, folks. And let's finish it up here in the AFC with the Los Angeles Chargers draft ditty.
Okay, so they've gone 5 years in a row drafting offense with their first pick. And it could easily turn to 6, Loveland or receiver. But if we really go back to 2016, they've made 20 first-round picks, 10 on offense, 10 on defense.
That's going all the way back to 2006.
2006, yeah, I think I said 16. Yeah, all the way back to 2006.
This is a team philosophy here. I want to hear from the listeners about some philosophies that they might notice about their teams.
I bet there's a ton I've missed.
I mean, there's so many that it could possibly be, and sometimes we're talking about going back to 2006. Well, the decision makers might not be the same people. So maybe there's something that's really more obvious about the way things could go. Help us with some clues when we're doing our mock drafts, and we'll relay that to our listeners. So let us know if your team has some trends or some philosophies in recent history that we should know about. Let us know at BD Peacock, at Williamson NFL. Drop a comment on YouTube. Subscribe while you're there. And Matt and I back tomorrow with notes on philosophies and trends for all the NFC teams in the NFL as it pertains to the NFL draft. Back tomorrow right here, Peacock and Williamson.